to celebrate a very special film premiere. We will be presenting the first Commissioner Robert O. Lowery story. It is a pleasure to have in the audience Fire Commissioner Laura Kavanaugh, Chief of Department John Hodgins, and other distinguished fire department members and staff who are here to celebrate this occasion. We'd also like to give a warm welcome to President of the NAACP New York State Conference of Branches, Ms. Hazel Dukes. And of course, we are especially honored to have Commissioner Lowery's family with us here today. His daughters, Leslie Lowery and Gertrude Irwin, his granddaughter, Callie Irwin, his nephews, Christopher Lowery, Wilson Lowery, as well as many of his other family members and friends. Welcome, and thank you all for coming to the special film premiere. I would like to take this moment to invite firefighter Olawale Lawal to sing. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. And the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let us resound loud as the roaring sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us, facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Please be seated. Thank you, Firefighter Lawal. Please stand as I invite Fire Department Chaplain Reverend Dr. V. Simpson Turner, Jr. to deliver the invocation.
Let us pray. Lord God, creator of the cosmos, we're grateful for this momentous evening. We're first and foremost blessed to have the beloved family, oh God, of Commissioner Robert Oliver Lowery with us tonight. God, we ask that you continue to bless them, encourage them. We thank them for loaning Commissioner Lowery to the FDNY. Oh God, tonight we are extremely grateful for Commissioner Robert Oliver Lowery, the first African-American commissioner of the FDNY. Commissioner Lowery, a man of tremendous intellect, a man, oh God, who cherished his African heritage and culture, a man who stood for right in a society full of wrong. Oh God, Commissioner Lowery was heroic, unapologetic, determined, dedicated man who led the FDNY during a time when our nation was full of turmoil. God, I and many others who are here tonight pause to express our appreciation for Commissioner Lowery because we know we did not make it here on our own. We stand on his shoulders tonight. And because of giants like Commissioner Lowery, God, we still stand to call out all the vestiges of racism, discrimination, and wrong in our society. Now, God, as we view this film tonight, we ask you to bless certainly this moment, but may it be a reminder of his life, but it's a microscopic view of his life. Many of us know Commissioner Lowery didn't live a life of luxury. No, when you're the first African-American commissioner, you have to go to work every day. During that time, with the idea of the imperils of society coming against you. Yet he persevered and kept on going. God, Commissioner Lowery had the intestinal fortitude to cast a line to put out the flames of racism and the sweltering heat of oppression while working to stop a city and a department which was on the verge of crumbling. Commissioner Lowery, a proud Vulcan who was president, led the premier affinity group to fight injustice. Oh God, I believed he did believe that Dr. King was right when he said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Oh yes, Commissioner Lowery was a man who was anointed and appointed by God to lead the FDNY. So now, gracious Father, we thank you tonight for this wonderful occasion because Commissioner Lowery had the audacity of hope. And even though he was hated, he made a remarkable impact on this department. He became the gold standard by which all will be viewed and judged, not only today, but in history. Thank you, God, for Commissioner Lowery, who in the midst of unyielding adversity taught us how to be a gentleman and a scholar. Commissioner Lowery was a man of integrity, compassion, and was able to walk with kings and queens, but never lost the common touch. So we celebrate his legacy tonight. And I'm honored to stand and offer this invocation to thee, O God, and certainly to remember this great man. We honor his memory by continuing to fight for racial equality and to eradicate all forms of discrimination. And as I close, I certainly hear the words of the civil rights anthem that we shall overcome. We shall overcome. I do believe deep in my heart that we shall overcome someday. It is in the name of him who died on a Friday called good so that we could live. And because of him, we were blessed to have Commissioner Robert Oliver Lowery, and everybody in this room. We ask these and all blessings, and let us all join together by saying amen and amen.
Please be seated. Thank you, Reverend Dr. V. Simpson Turner, Jr. It is now my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Fire Commissioner Laura Kavanaugh.
Good evening. Thank you guys so much for being here. This is a very special event that means a lot to me, and I know most of all to Commissioner Lowery's family. For those of you who don't know why we decided to do it today, tomorrow is Commissioner Lowery's birthday, and we thought what better time than the eve of his day to celebrate his life and his legacy for a man that did so much for our department and for our city. Forgive me, I'm going to give some additional thank yous because it took a lot of very special, loving work to get here. So I want to say thank you again to his family. If you guys are comfortable standing up, please do so. If not, it's okay. Leslie and Trudy, his daughters, his granddaughter, Callie, his nephews, Christopher and Wilson. We really are honored that you're here. We appreciate your partnership, your trust in us, in telling your family's story. It means a lot. Thank you so much. And I want to thank some others who helped us be here, some folks who had to leave, but were here and did see the movie. First of all, the mayor of the city of New York, Eric Adams, his deputy mayor for public safety, Lou Molina, chief advisor, Ingrid Lewis-Martin, and senior advisor, Tim Pearson. They were all here tonight and all helped in the funding of this. So thank you to them. Hazel Dukes, Mrs. Dukes, I have to say a special thank you to you. Not only is everything you've done in your life so amazing, and you never give up. You are the ultimate strong role model. But as we were talking about before this, when I was first being considered for this job, you presented me with an award, and in your words, spoke this into being, and I really never thought I would be so special to even have my name come out of your mouth, let alone to have you here. So it's very special you're here. Thank you very much. Also want to say thank you to many people in my life and in the department's history who are also firsts in their own right. Regina Wilson, you are here, are you not? Where's Regina? The president of the Vulcan Society, the first female she's in the back. First female president of the Vulcan Society, Robert Turner, my former boss, former first deputy commissioner. My whole executive staff who's sitting up here in the front row, Jack, Joe, Lewis, Mike, you can stand up. I know, I'm making this a big deal. Pascal, where is Pascal? She's hiding. The woman behind the movie who did all the work. Yes, you can bring her out here, Tim. Janine and Tracy, where are you? Janine Gilliam, Lieutenant Lewis. There truly is a lot of work that goes in behind the scenes for something like this, and all these folks, as you can see from their covered faces, are not normally comfortable being out front, but they do deserve a thank you, so thank you to all of them. And thank you to anybody I didn't mention. I apologize. I will get to my speech, I promise. So at the fire department, we pride ourselves in our innate ability to keep going despite adversity, challenges, and obstacles. We are tenacious in our dedication and our mission. When we get it wrong, we try to assess and learn and do better. The creation of this film has not been perfect, but it has been exactly all of those things. And I think that represents, from what I've learned from Commissioner Lowery's career in this department, a really special journey to get his story right and to talk about all the ways in which it was a sign of optimism and hope, and all the ways that it was incredibly difficult, and especially in the ways that we forget 50 years later how difficult it was. It is very easy to look back and know that he was an amazing commissioner, to know that he was qualified to do his job, to know he did it well. It was not that clear to him at the time. And as everybody who's come up here and said, he had to get up and go to work every day, not always hearing that message and not always being sure that that was going to be his legacy. So I think it's very, very important that we went through that process ourselves and that we get a chance to tell that story with all of the true layers and complications and feelings that it really was, because I think that's what it means to be first. He carved out that path anyways, despite those obstacles. And he did it for 8 years, which is an incredible tenure in the fire department. Yes, let's give that a round of applause. Not Not a lot of 8-year commissioners in the fire department, so true credit to him. So aptly titled The First, the film we're about to see tonight isn't just about a man who was the first black fire commissioner. It is a film about a man who innovated, who improvised, who did his best despite intense pressure and challenges. He was a true pioneer in our department in every way. He identified problems we still face today in fire investigation, in operations, in communication, in technology, in balancing budgets, in mentorship, recruitment, and diversity. He was a forward-thinking leader who created solutions for these issues, and perhaps, even more incredibly, he did so in a time in our city's history that was remarkable in its volume of fire duty and in its racial and economic strife. Technology, diversity, firefighter safety, communication, all issues we still deal with every day and talk about every morning. Mentorship, another one of his signature issues, is alive and well at the FDNY. As Commissioner Lowery knew, we are stronger together than as one, and reaching out to each other in support in brother and sisterhood is a pillar of who we are as a department. The bonds we form with each other lift us up and allow us to do the things we once thought were impossible. We have told many stories about Commissioner Lowery, and perhaps the most relevant tonight is the one that I think we can all relate to about sticking to it. He did not give up. He did not bow to the naysayers. Rather, he kept going, even on the days when I'm sure things were not easy. He opened the door and left behind a legacy that allows leaders like me to find a seat at the table. I could keep talking about his legacy and impact on the FDNY, but I invite you to watch the film, which is much better than my speech, and see it for yourself. Thank you for being here. It's truly remarkable. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from our Chief of Department, John Hodgins.
Good evening. It's an honor to be here to recognize the life and accomplishments of Commissioner Robert O. Lowery. Creating this film was a team effort. I want to give a very special thank you to the Lowery family and the Vulcan Society for their participation and support. Thank you. I also want to give a shout out and special thank you to all the members of the fire department that helped put this together, such as digital media, OPI, special events, and of course the ceremonial unit who set this all up for us tonight. Your hard work made this night a reality, so thank you. Commissioner Lowery's legacy is so important to the history of the FDNY. It is one of leadership and courage, and we should all strive to live up to his legacy as we continue to respond to fires and emergencies every day and every night. Commissioner Lowery worked during a difficult time for the department and the city. It was a time known in our history as the war years, when arson, crime, and rioting were at an all-time high. The city at the time was averaging 250 serious fires a day. That's very hard to imagine. Upon his appointment, Commissioner Lowery foresaw many advances in firefighting techniques and equipment in the years ahead. Being a firefighter himself for many years, he was well suited to identify and innovate equipment and policies that would make both firefighters and New Yorkers safer. He made improvements to technology by way of the voice alarm boxes, where you push the button and you speak, and also was a big proponent of the SCBA, which is the mask we wear when we go into a fire so we could breathe fresh air. So without either of those things, we wouldn't be where we are today. He also, at that time, secured millions of dollars for new fire apparatus and handy-talkie radios that greatly improved communications on the fire ground. He reevaluated how units were dispatched based on neighborhood density, and in a time of budget constraints, he made sure to relocate fire apparatus to areas with higher incidences of fire to provide the best fire coverage for all New Yorkers. We still do that today. Each of these things together strengthened the department and ultimately saved the lives of New Yorkers and firefighters. But as he is quoted in a 1965 newspaper article, he said, It all comes back to the man, or in today's world, and the woman, who hears the bell and slides down the pole and gets on the apparatus. That's what it's all about. Almost 60 years later, this is something that still rings true. The FDNY's success is all about our backbone, the firefighters. The work he did paved the way for those who followed. We are a better department because of him. As we reflect on Commissioner Lowery's accomplishments, we are proud of the direction the department is going. The FDNY's trademark is that we are never done improving, and we also acknowledge that we still have work to do. We will continue to learn from the past so that we can make our department better now and in the future. Thank you again for coming. Let's get on with the show.
Next, we will hear from Vulcan Society President, Ms. Regina Wilson.
Good evening, everyone. I want to thank you all for coming out today on this very special evening. I want to first thank my family, the Lowery family, for getting this film done, which was long overdue, to recognize the amazing work that was done for our first Black commissioner. And so I'm very happy to see you guys here. And I'm also thankful for the fire department to be able to produce this work that shows some of the important work that have been done by African Americans in the fire department back then and up until today. So I wanted to talk a little bit about this amazing man as well as his contribution to our organization. This film tonight will discuss his time in the FDNY and his significant impact to the department. I would like to first discuss his impact to the world of firefighting and the Vulcan Society. In November 23rd, 1965, incoming Mayor Lindsay announced the appointment of Lowery as the Fire Commissioner of New York City Fire Department. He was the first commissioner-level appointment announced by the mayor-elect. Commissioner Lowery was the first African-American to be a fire commissioner of a major U.S. city and had historical impact and continues to lay the pathway for African Americans in the fire service and continues to achieve leadership roles and leadership roles in other respective departments. Commissioner Lowery also was a Vulcan Society president. He was the president from 1946 to 1950, from 1953 and 54, 57, and from 1959 until 1963. As we also honor him as being the first, we also want to give recognition to some of the first in the fire service that have laid the path as well for Commissioner Lowery. We continue to honor and give our first Black firefighter in New York, Ms. Molly Williams, and the first Black firefighter in the FDNY, Mr. William Nicholson. Our first Black lieutenant, captain, chief was Mr. Wesley Williams, who was one of the founders of the Vulcan Society. David James Floyd was assigned to the Rescue Company 2 in Brooklyn, New York, becoming the first Black firefighter ever assigned to a rescue company in the history of the FDNY, and returned to rescue as a lieutenant. And we also acknowledge our first Black female lieutenant, Ella McNair. Commissioner Lowery's impact on leadership in the fire service, I believe, led to the appointment of the first African-American United States Fire Administrator, Carrie B. Brown, who was appointed in 1994, the first African-American woman appointed as fire chief for a career fire department was Chief Rosemary McLeod of the East Point in Georgia FDNY Fire Department in 2002. And in 2021, Annette Nancy Holt was appointed Chicago's Fire Department Commissioner, becoming the first African-American woman to lead the department. The first Black chief in Gwinnett County was Fred Cyphers, and the first black female chief, Lisa Forrest, was the first black chief in Philadelphia. The level of greatness to the fire service continues to make an impact and influence on African Americans across the world to this day. And to them and the many who are not named today, we say thank you. I truly believe that some of these chiefs and commissioners who are African Americans and are the first was because of the efforts of Commissioner Lowery and his appointment as the fire commissioner. Commissioner Lowery was the commissioner for all, although some people may not have thought that way. His goal was to be an innovative commissioner, as well as making sure that some of the discriminatory practices that he experienced as a firefighter were not inflicted on firefighters after him. He was met with resistance in many occasions, but he prevailed and made himself one of the greatest commissioners of all time. His work in the Volk Society still continues to this day and has laid a great foundation. The Volk Society still continues to do study groups for people that would like to become firefighters, as well as those looking to move up in the rank of officers. We also still continue to have mentoring and community service, as well as training for physical fitness for all of these roles. We are also proud to also have within our ranks EMS, fire inspectors, as well as civilians of the FDNY. All of our advocacy and the work that we have done is because of this foundation that has been laid. And I just want to thank all of those members that are Voca Society and a part of this organization for all the hard work that you've done throughout the years. Without you, none of this would be possible. A few weeks ago, we celebrated the first class of majority-minority firefighters to be added to the rank of firefighter. This accomplishment was largely responsible for the Voca Society and its $100 million lawsuit for discrimination. Unfortunately, and still to this day, we are fighting against some of the treatment that Commissioner Lowery and those in the past still had to deal with. But this organization, because of the strong people that represent us and we've been able to grow through and with, we still stand resilient until this day. Our advocacy work will never stop because we know that African Americans deserve an opportunity to be a part of this organization, and we will always make sure that we provide that opportunity for all that would like to come. One of the sayings from the International Association of Black Professional Firefighters, who was the past president of Dave Floyd, who started it, and the FDNY are the founders. The saying that we have is, all that I am, I owe. I live eternally in the red. This is the motto of the Volk Society, the International, and what we stand by today. So thank you all, and I hope you have a great evening.
Thank you, Vulcan Society President Regina Wilson. Next, we will hear from retired firefighter Hisham Tawfiq, speaking on behalf of former Vulcan Society President Albert Washington.
Good evening. Congratulations to all who made this evening a reality. This tribute to Fire Commissioner Robert O'Leary documents the historic significance of his tenure as the FDNY and America's first black leader of a major fire department. His appointment and leadership during the stormy 60s became like a lighthouse to future black fire executives throughout the nation. Prior to his appointment, he honed his leadership skills as president of the Vulcan Society, where he served multiple terms as our president for more than a decade, earning the title President Emeritus. He's also responsible for many innovative initiatives that guided the FDNY into the future and becoming more inclusive. Finally, this film is a tribute to Bob's family, whose sacrifice made his success possible. Their love and support during trying times was essential to his success. Today, his legacy at the Vulcan Society lives on under the historic leadership
of President Regina Wilson, and at the FDNY under the historic leadership of Fire Commissioner Laura Kavanaugh. Have a great evening. Elbert Washington, past president, Vulcan Society, FDNY.
Thank you, Firefighter Tafiq. Next, we'll hear from the president of the NAACP, New York State Conference of Branches, Ms. Hazel Dukes.
Good afternoon. I am 92 years of age. Started off for all of you young people, especially you who are from the African diaspora, African Americans from many parts of the country who have come to this city where I have been a force in it. When Jim Lowery became commissioner, I received a call from then incumbent John Lindsay. And he said, "Dukes?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "I noticed a proud moment for you. The NAACP across this country had filed lawsuits against fire departments and police departments to let you in." I was part of the lawsuits that were brought here in New York City. When I stand here tonight and look at you men and women and the first commissioner who I had the privilege of giving her award when I spoke to women that night, and I claimed it, that she would become commissioner. Had not met her, had not had a conversation with her, didn't know her, but I had heard of the work and the kind of person that she prevailed, and I thought at this time in New York City to move us forward, that it was time too to see that a woman could step in that role and make it a greater person. So when Lowery and I would get together, we decided that we wanted to go out in our community and train people. You know, it's always a budget cut. So he said, "Okay, I'll do that, Dukes. What you going to put in?" I said, "Well, you know, we like food." I said, "If you find a place and we get people to open the doors for you to do the training, I'll buy the food." So the NAACP put its money where its mouth was. And so we brought in young people, many of them who passed by me now and said, "Thank you." Some young man tonight came by and sat down, and he said, "I know you. I belong to the Jamaica branch in NAACP." We encourage people not just to be firefighters, but become productive citizens of this great city that we live in, to show that we could be in every department, in every area of this city. You have made this fire department greater because we fought for you to get in and to do the job that we know that you could do and would do for this great city. So tonight I come with great joy, great thank you to the Lowery family. I know what it is to be the first. I've been the poster child of many of the newspapers in this city. I've been called a racist. The late Dave Dinkins had the courage to make me the first woman ever in the history of any place to become the president of New York City all-track betting. And when I walked into a room with all white males sitting there. One of them happened to be a name that I don't want to call, but yes, I do want to call him out. His name is Donald Trump. When I walked in that room that day and he had to sit before me, because at that time they rotated who was going to be the chair of that organization, and so happened that the God I served put me in that seat. And when he walked in and I was dressed to the nine, I had my hat on like those ladies that go to the racetracks and, at the big days. So I put on a hat that day. My grandma always told me how to dress and how to be the real woman in the room. So I had my strut on, my beautiful St. John suit, like I have on tonight. And I walked in and he said, "Who are you?" I said, "I'm Hazel Dukes, president of the New York City Off-Track Betting Corporation." He sat down and never opened his mouth again. And so when Tish James have him sitting sweating, that's because she was one of my kids that I raised. So tonight I come with pride. I come with humility to know that this city stopped to pause, not to correct all the ills, but to kind of remember that we are stronger together than we are apart. Thank you so much for this occasion.
Thank you, NAACP President Dukes. And now, ladies and gentlemen, what we've been all waiting for, the premiere, the first, Commissioner Robert O'Leary's story.
New York is a town that asks no quarter and gives no quarter. But if you view yourself as among the best and the brightest and the most motivated, it's a place where there is no ceiling to your advancement. He understood the challenges that he was going to face, but he also understood the opportunities that were placed before him as a result of being in that position. When he was taking on that challenge of being the commissioner, knowing full well that he was not going to be welcomed probably by a majority of the people that he was going to be responsible for supervising, and being in a city that was going to experience more difficulties as it went forward that would manifest themselves on the performance of his job. He was aware of all of those things, but at the same time, he was raised not to allow the knowledge of those difficulties, the awareness of what was ahead of him, to in any way dissuade him from taking on, doing as much as he could to succeed as the commissioner of the city of New York, and in particular as the first black commissioner of the fire department of the city of New York.
It was a turbulent time. It was a turbulent time for all, and particularly for black firemen. We took great pride in the fact that he was the fire commissioner and that he served the department very well through a very difficult time.
I can use the term warriors You went to fires all day, the whole tour, and all night, the whole tour. You went from one fire to the next fire to the next fire. It's almost unbelievable. But it was fire duty 101 all the time. Every tour you came to work, you knew you were going to be out fighting fires most of that tour.
When the Bronx was burning, they would send us to the Bronx, and we would go there and give those guys a break. When Brooklyn was burning, we'd go to Brooklyn. I was on 35 truck, and we were relocating all over the city. There were times when we would leave our company after roll call at 6 o'clock. We'd go to the Bronx and stay there and run all night until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and come back.
A lot of these were arson fires set by your landlord, a commercial building owner who does it for insurance.
At the same time, there was an explosion in false alarms. Those are the days in which they had the old fire telegraph system. You would go and you would pull a lever, and that would send the call in at a location, and they would respond to that location. False alarms were taking the firefighters, taking those units, taking the apparatus away from the buildup in the fires that were occurring.
In other words, the fire trucks go roaring out for help when help is needed. But 37,000 times in 1 year, those firemen, your firemen, our firemen, in these trucks, went out of the firehouse and onto the streets for no good reason.
There has been a 400% increase in false alarms during the past 12 years, and in 1966, 38,000 false alarms were transmitted in our city.
It was a very difficult time, and then you add to that tensions that existed between an almost exclusively white fire department and these minority neighborhoods, and you had situations where there was an acting out of the rage that people were feeling on being abused so badly. And so you had bottles and bricks and so forth thrown down at the firefighters when they were answering these calls. Uncle Bob was dealing with all of those difficulties. He had been commissioner for over 7 years, among the most consequential years in the city's history.
There were 4 of them. Irving's the oldest, then Wilson, then Florence, and then my father.
Each of the brothers was unique in their own way, and each of them was extraordinary in its own way. My father went into the police department, worked in some of the toughest, most dangerous neighborhoods in the city, and was proudest of the fact that he never shot anyone. Uncle Wills was known as an extraordinarily brave individual. He went into the fire department before Uncle Bob, but he won acceptance, commanded acceptance, by being the first into a fire, by putting himself in the most danger in order to rescue people, had 4 buildings fall on him, and was eventually put out on disability. Uncle Bob was as brave as Uncle Wills. He could be as authoritative as my father, but he was sensitive in a way that I would say with all honesty that neither of the other two were. I think there were 2 signal influences on Uncle Bob. The first, of course, is the fact that he was being raised by a single parent, by his father, who was a very disciplined man, who expected his children to walk the straight and narrow and brooked no nonsense, no foolishness, as they would say at the time. But at the same time, Uncle Bob was the youngest of 3 brothers. Both of his brothers took a very strong interest in him. They were mentors, in a sense, to him, took responsibility for him, to the point where, as the story goes, when he passed the test for the police department and the fire department, it was essentially the brothers who determined that he was going into the fire department. They provided very strong guidance. That was very useful to him. There was a sense of purpose in the family. There was a sense of having goals and to pursue those goals in spite of whatever obstacles were put before you. Each of them pursued something to make themselves a success and to provide for their families, but at the same time to contribute to the betterment of society, particularly black society. That combination of factors that Uncle Bob grew up in gave him some of the unique talents and capacities to then exhibit that later in life and to be a leader of a 13,000-man department that he felt had to be dragged in some respects into the modern world.
Bob Lowery came into the job in 1941. The black firefighters were not considered as equal. They were not permitted to sit at the table and eat with the white firefighters. They were not permitted to sleep in the same area. There's a firehouse. Firemen are there. The black firemen sleep over there, and the white firemen can sleep over here. And time to eat, the white firemen can sit at the table, and you're going to sit over there. And we're not going to speak to you except to give you orders what to do. That's the kind of situation we had. I grew up in South Carolina. I knew what racism was. Kind of subtle here in New York. In South Carolina, it's bold. You're not allowed here. There's a sign that says you're not allowed. In New York, there's no sign, but there's an attitude. There's a behavior that you're not allowed. And if you come here, we will turn our backs on you and say nasty things to you, so you will not come here again. But we will not put a sign that says you're not allowed.
Most of the black guys who were in the fire department joined the Vulcan Society, which is the organization primarily of black professional firefighters. It's an organization that was formed under the auspices of Chief Wesley Williams. He helped it to grow to be as strong as it is.
Wesley Williams was the third black firefighter. The day he walked into the firehouse, the captain of that company called his men to order and had a roll call and resigned, left the firehouse that day. And the men supported him by all wanting to resign. They were not allowed to do so the firehouse could continue to function. But Wesley Williams stayed there, segregated, not allowed to eat with the guys, not allowed to sleep in the same area. And he said because he was so isolated, he decided to put his time to good use. And he started studying. He passed the lieutenant's test, he made captain, and then he made chief. Black firefighters were just treated so poorly, segregated, despised, actually attacked in some cases. But Wesley Williams started calling meetings with the few black firefighters that were in the job at the time, and they said, we have to do something. From those meetings, they organized the Vulcan Society, and officially it became an organization in April 1940. And in 1941, Robert Lowery came into the job and was inspired by Wesley Williams and did well.
Chief Williams was instrumental in getting Uncle Bob active in the Vulcan Society. In addition to trying to personally mentor Uncle Bob to advance in the department and to be a success in the department, he also helped to focus Uncle Bob's sense of responsibility to pay that down and to be a mentor to the next generation of firefighters, of minority firefighters entering the department.
The idea of a mentor in those days, you hook up with them and you follow their lead.
Chief Williams saw a person who was of purpose, who was serious, who was intelligent, who was sensitive, who had a sense of responsibility and a willingness to put himself on the line to make the world a better place and to advance his people. Chief Williams saw in Uncle Bob all of the things that I hope he saw in himself.
He became a fire marshal in 1946.
He chose to be a fire marshal. He pursued that because it gave him the opportunity to work as a firefighter, to impact it in a way that he, I think, relished. He did some extraordinary things as a fire marshal. He arrested some of the worst arsonists in the city after doing his investigations, and at least one of them was armed at the time that he arrested that perpetrator.
When I came in the job in 1958, a few months later, early 1959, I joined the Vulcan Society. Bob Lowery was the president of the Vulcans at the time. I was so proud, so pleased to be in an organization where the firefighters were all so eager to achieve. And Bob Lowery was quite an inspiration for the firefighters. We looked up to him. We would like to see some of our firefighters in fire headquarters. So what about Bob Lowery? The Vulcan Society, as he inspired us, we inspired him. And we made him first deputy fire commissioner.
I, John V. Lindsay. I, John V. Lindsay. Do solemnly swear. Do solemnly swear.
The question for us in the black community was, we have a black deputy fire commissioner. Now we have a new mayor coming in. What would be his attitude? Will he keep him on, or would he let him go?
I've just come from a meeting of the city commissioners of every department in New York City, most especially police, fire.
John Lindsay came in as mayor, and he didn't just keep him on, he promoted him, made him fire commissioner. And that was a great day for us. It was a great celebration. And I was off duty that day. I was driving and I heard that the first black fire commissioner, Robert O'Leary, was appointed today as commissioner of New York City Fire Department.
Fire Commissioner Robert O'Leary.
When he became commissioner, it was a major to-do. It was headlines in the New York Times.
Well, Commissioner, it was...
There was a lot of pride all around. Everybody, in the black community was elated over the appointment. And we took a lot of pride in what he became.
It's fair to say that none of us expected ever to be invited to Gracie Mansion. And yet here we were going in to meet John Lindsay, who was the darling of the political scene in New York. Here we were going into Gracie Mansion as a member of our family was going to be sworn in at one of the highest profile and most critical jobs in the city. Our grandfather was not one to pat somebody on the back or say, well done or anything like that. It was pretty clear from his facial expression that he was very much proud of that situation and where one of his children had reached. Lindsay had called Uncle Bob into his office upon being elected and prior to taking office to discuss with him the situation with respect to the fire department, with particular focus on its relationship to the minority community. And they wound up having a much longer and more wide-ranging conversation than either of them had expected. There was a broad agenda for things that he would want to achieve in the department. They went from the spectrum of social justice in opening it up to qualified minorities and opening the gender bias that existed in the department. But at the same time, he thought that the department was, to a certain extent, hidebound. There were things that were being done that had been done for decades without ever considering whether those were the most efficient and effective ways of doing them, or whether those tasks were necessary to be performed, if not in the same way, then at all. And so he wanted to bring the department up into the modern world using technology that was now available, that would save the citizens' lives, but at the same time also save firefighters' lives, protect their welfare as well. And he was trying to do all of this at a time that was incredibly difficult in the city because the economic climate was changing dramatically. He was directly involved in each of those issues, even before he became commissioner. And I think that to a certain extent, that's what Mayor Lindsay recognized when he won the election and chose to have him become his first appointee, his first commissioner level appointee. Uncle Bob at the swearing in was reserved. The enormity of the task that was before him was hitting him at that moment. He knew how difficult that job was going to be. This is not someone who came from the outside and wasn't familiar with the culture of the fire department or the challenges that the city was facing. To him, this was a burden and an opportunity, and he recognized both aspects of it.
The fire at Broadway and 22nd Street and collapsed on 23rd Street, October 1966, will be long remembered as their most tragic fire. In one swift moment, 12 men have been caught in a collapse on 23rd Street. Fire Commissioner Lowery notes, "This is the saddest day of my 25 years in the department. All 12 are lost."
Firefighting is inherently dangerous. When you go to a serious fire or fatal fire, it affects everyone greatly. Everyone feels it. As the fire commissioner, he especially felt it. The 23rd Street fire was one of the worst tragedies at that point that the fire department had experienced. While they were operating to try to fight this fire, there was a disastrous collapse which killed 12 firefighters. 3 of them were Commissioner Lowery's Vulcan Society members, so they were people that he knew, in addition to anyone he may have worked with.
There was a broad agenda for things that he would want to achieve in the department. He thought anyone who was capable of doing that job and being dedicated to doing that job of saving lives and preventing the loss of property and so forth should have the opportunity to pursue that, which was not the case before.
The salvage unit was part of a Model Cities program to introduce young black males from the inner city to the department, and they would respond to operations to protect the furnishings of the residents of the fire, and he got them involved with the hope that it would interest them in the department and that one day they would enter the department. And the thought is, let people in the community see black men and women fighting fires, protecting their communities, interacting with these young men and women with the hope that it will interest them in also joining the workforce.
I think having a black man at the head of the department, and not just a black man, but one who came out of the department, who had been immersed in the battles to increase the fairness of the department and the entry and mentorship of young minority firefighters in particular, I think that was tremendously valuable at recruiting additional minorities to enter the department. He had a history of fighting for their involvement. Prior to becoming commissioner, he had participated in putting together the original civil rights suit against the department. He cooperated in the subsequent civil rights suits in providing data that would exhibit and prove the lack of faithfulness in the test to the performance of the job that would open up the opportunity for more minorities and women to enter the department. He strengthened the technical parts of the department. He recruited leaders who were recognized as leaders, who were accepted as technical experts in their areas of expertise. And I think that that was a fundamental change that he had made in the department. Innovations that they had was so-called slippery water that they were working on at the time that would enable them to increase the flow of water on a fire. He believed that if you could prevent a fire, that was the best way to fight a fire. And so he was sending people out into the community to speak to fire prevention. There was no ability to separate these things. They were all a part of a whole. The protection of his people, the reconciling to the extent that he could of these communities that were under tremendous suppression and oppression, reforms in the department that would get it to look more like the people that it was serving, the technical innovations. This was all a part of the whole. You couldn't separate any of these things. They're all interrelated and all part of achieving the same purpose. With all of the difficulties that he was facing, the technical difficulties that he was facing and trying to address, there was also some racial animus that existed as well that magnified the pressures that he was feeling at the time. There was a really unscrupulous group of people within the department who were putting out false accusations that he was a drug dealer and had sold the civil service test answers to people in order to boost the acceptance rate for blacks and Hispanics in the fire department. I don't think he ever spoke about that publicly, but I know that hurt him deeply. All of these pressures had been on him to an extraordinary degree.
He was a leader, and he knew right from wrong. All the time, we had to do your best. Even when you think that they're taking advantage of you, you still have to do your best.
He's on a journey that no one went before as a first, like Wesley Williams was a first. So he encountered problems and he overcame them. Commissioner Lowery encountered problems and he had to overcome those problems, and he had to force his will as much as possible to get things done. But as a first, you're a first. You represent, and you know that people are watching, and you know that you have detractors as well as supporters.
As being the first, he understood the challenges and how, if he doesn't get it right, he can close the door for many to come after him. In order to really appreciate Commissioner Lowery, you have to really place yourself in the time frame. He was there in 1966. Not only were buildings burning, but our country was burning. It was in the civil rights movement. There were a great deal of marching and really fighting. Some of those fires had nothing to do with an accidental fire. They were arson. Our communities were burning. Neighborhoods were burning. He was a symbol of, if we were going to make it through, we would have to change and have different thoughts.
For him, probably so many days were so hard, and there was so much scrutiny, and so many days, whether it was on a personal level, a professional level, that this journey seemed impossible, that all these years later, he is seen as a very successful commissioner. He was commissioner overseeing very difficult years, that he moved the department forward through equipment and technology, that he was the president of the Vulcan Society and moved forward diversity in the department and mentorship in the department. And I think history gives us that in a way that it might have felt at the time for him and for people around him. You know, this is hard. Am I doing it right? Are we moving forward? History helps us know that, you know, not only did he do that, he did that phenomenally well. It's really an essential part of his story to understand how much he had to overcome, what was going on in the city of New York at the time, and to think about the fact that someone who wouldn't be allowed to sit at the kitchen table could one day become commissioner. You know, it's a testament to him, but I also think we can't put aside what he had to get over or get through to get where he was. If he made it to first, it's certainly because he had a network of support around him. Nobody gets anywhere alone, certainly not in the fire department.
The Vulcan Society is 84 years old. I am the first female president in its 84-year history. And I think that the Vulcan Society laid down the foundation in order for me to lead this organization. past presidents and past members of the organization inspired me to want to take on this role of leadership and to know that I could be able to carry the weight that has been done before and to stand on the shoulders of those behind me. We're still dealing with some of the issues that Commissioner Lowery dealt with back in the 60s. We definitely have come a long way since then, but I think the fight and the struggle still exist, and it's difficult in 2024 to still deal with some of those problems. Mentorship means a lot. We feel like it's our responsibility to just make sure that anybody going in succeeds. And it's important for us to be able to make sure that the community has the opportunities to join the FDNY when for many years they were not given the opportunity.
Everyone needs a mentor. I don't care if you're the president of the United States or, you're a kid in kindergarten. Fire department does mentorship like really well. And it's grandfathers telling grandsons and granddaughters. It's fathers telling sons or uncles telling nephews. For a kid like me from Southside Jamaica, Queens, you didn't know if that was really for you. You didn't know how to get there.
I think the public, when they see a Latino on the engine or the truck, or they see a black lieutenant, it gives them something like to say, hey, I can be that, or I want to be that. In my case, and like many people out there who don't have family members or close friends on the job, the mentor program fills that void.
People coming onto the fire department now,
all different backgrounds.
All different backgrounds. Yes. And we're laying the foundation for that to be okay. We're being more welcoming. The message that it sends to everyone, that you could get there. The mentorship program, it's orchestrated and engineered specifically to do just that. It's there to create transparency. And so to connect that, really, it could change the trajectory of people's lives. And I know it has done that.
We talk so much about mentorship and training in the fire department. We do have an official mentorship program. And you see those bonds between our current members and, what are, at this point, kids coming into the fire department. For anybody who's been to one of the mentorship events, you can see these bonds across generations and stages of careers that are really inspiring. Like, you see the bonds that they're building and how the fire department becomes a family before you're even here.
When I look back what he was trying to do then, some of those activities are happening now. He would be happy to see that some of what he thought about is taking place today. I also knew what he experienced as a commissioner and the strength that he had to have to try to push these programs in the department that might not have wanted them. So I certainly respected him for that.
Walking in these halls all the time just makes me feel such pride. It really makes me proud. It makes all of our members proud to know that we come from such a rich history. Not just even firefighters, for all of the FDNY employees to know that they are part of something great. I reflect on Commissioner Lowery and all of the past presidents when I stand in front of the same podium that he stood in front of as the president of this organization, which we still use to this day. Their legacy definitely is a part of who we are. It's going to continue to be who we are, and we're going to continue to fight and advocate for the rights of African Americans.
None of us see ourselves as being the street sign or the auditorium or being even like that title. Those titles are so big, it can feel like, how could I ever embody that? But those people are human beings. They're human beings and they started somewhere and they had a story that got them there. And so I think that's what those things are a reminder of, is that the journey can be true for anyone, and it's possible for that probie, it's possible for that, young kid at the street renaming. If that's what they want to do, it is by no means off the table for them. And I think that not only showing those names, but also, frankly, the fact that they might say, who is this person, and look it up, will tell them a story about someone else who was their age, who was from where they were from, and got where they did. And I think that tells them that it's possible for them too.
There still is trepidation. There still is uncertainty. When you walk into headquarters and you see that visual of having him there, it sends the right message that you too could belong.
He would be very happy today to know that there has been an increase in the number of black firemen, but also that they continue the fight in terms of filing the court cases. I think because of his accomplishments that it should be noted in history as to who he was and what he did. He would be very happy that he got his street naming in the community where he spent many years, and the auditorium was just icing on the cake, and the notion that his life will be commemorated is a well-deserved tribute to someone who did as much as he did in his life.
Being the first in an arena is an act of courage just by accepting the task at hand and standing alone. There is no guide to follow. There is no one to follow from an historical point. There is just you. Commissioner Lowery met his challenge fearlessly with energy and enlightenment. He got to the task of modernizing the department in the field and diversifying the department in the firehouse. He implemented programs to lift the veil from the FDNY and allow all people in New York City to see that they too could be one of New York's bravest.
Judy. I don't have my glasses. Okay, that's all right. I don't have my glasses. All I want to do, thank you. They're going to work. Yes. I'm pleased with, the family is pleased with the film. That's all I wanted to say. And we're grateful to everyone who helped in its production, the Fire Department of New York's Foundation, the Pro Film Board of the Fire Department, the Project Working Group, and the production staff, especially Nick Gus, the director. Where's Nick? Yeah, Pascal Etienne. And Joseph Malvasio. And I'm sure there were many others in the production staff. We also want to, as everyone else has been doing, thank the two firsts that are in the room, and that's our first female fire commissioner, Laura Kavanaugh. Thank you. And our first female president of the Vulcan Society, Regina Wilson. Their support of this project we truly appreciate. Right here. Right here.
Lastly, a very special thanks to our cousin, Christopher Lowery. This film could not have been made without him. This concludes the film premiere. We'd like to thank the FDNY Foundation for this generous support of today's celebration in film. The Vulcan Society was an important link in helping to illustrate and continue Fire Commissioner Lowery's legacy. Thank you to the New York City Fire Museum for hosting us, as well as many others who took part in putting together this more memorable event. Most importantly, we are grateful for the participation and guidance of the Lowery family in celebrating a historic pioneer in the fire service. On behalf of the Fire Commissioner, the Chief of Department, I want to thank everyone for joining us. Please enjoy the rest of the evening. We have the Lowery family go to the rear to meet with the press. And